araw lang naman yun. So,
Oh.
Monday, trabaho uli.
Siyempre,
Wala.
Monday, kayod ulit. Kailangan kayod. Hindi lang
Adulting
tayo sa
yarn.
kumu
Charot.
kakayod, di ba, sir? Dapat pati in life, kailangan
Mm.
kumayod tayo. O, lapel.
Yes.
Wag lang harot.
Adulting.
Wag lang harot.
Uy,
Kayod din.
apa ka? Ganun talaga. Talaga ang buhay, kailangan kumayod-kayod din.
Ikaw, lapel, anong gusto mong kunin sa college mo? Tapos, ano yung gusto mong work?
Mag-e-edu po ako.
So, mag-teacher.
Yes. Pero gusto ko lang HRM.
Ba't gusto mo mag-teacher?
Bakit? Wala, good. Parang sa'yo lang kasing magturo ng mga bata. Alam mo yun, yung matutulungan mo sila kung paano magbasa, ganun. Ang cute lang na magtuturo. Kahit makulit. Tapos sila din yung magtatanggal ng pagod mo. Inikilig ako pag nalo. Gusto ko talaga ng teacher. Pinaglalaban ko talaga yung teacher.
Ikaw, Sir Karlito, ano kinuha mo nung college ka?
Well, fun fact, gusto ko rin mag-teacher before.
Mm-hmm.
So, dapat, actually, yung first na planned na course, engineering, kasi engineer yung father ko. So, parang, okay, fine, engineering. Tapos, ano ba? Parang business ad yata yung original kong kinuha nung nag-exam ako sa UP. Pero hindi ako pumasok. Sa UP kasi, sa mga hindi familiar, kapag sa UP, may tinatawag na quota courses nung OPCAT before, na parang kailangan mo maka-meet ng certain grade dun sa entrance exam. So, hindi ako nakapasok sa quota for business ad. Pero nakapasok ako for my second, I think, which was, yung alam kong comsci or nursing. Pero I think it was one of those two. Pero parang ang naging decision was, okay, parang parehong school nasa Manila. So if I go for engineering, yung choice ko talaga was Mapua kasi engineering school. Tapos another was yung nursing, which is yung sa UP Manila. So pareho silang Manila. Parang taga QC kasi ako, sa malayong part ako ng QC. So parang napag-decisionan na, okay, if you're taking both, parang laging traffic papasok. So parang naging practical din talaga yung choices ko on how I decided. So eventually, parang yung Mapua, meron silang branch sa Makati. Back then, bago pa siya, bagong campus. Tapos, ano ba yun, 2007, ang uso ko, parang nagbo-boom kasi yung technology and mga technology company. So parang sinuggest ng father ko sa akin was, ba't di ka mag-IT? Tapos parang yung school was 2 blocks away from his office. So parang pwede kaming sabay pumasok niyan. So it was very practical at the time. So yun, I eventually ended up with IT. It wasn't something I planned, pero ayun, that's how I got to where I am now.
So, related talaga yung course mo sa trabaho mo ngayon, sir?
Yes, very, very related. So yung work ko ngayon is, ano ko ba i-explain sa non-IT? So think of Kumu, di ba? So kunyari nagka-issue kayo sa Kumu, magre-report kayo sa mga email, support teams, whatever. So yung work ko is doing that pero for big companies. So yung client namin, manufacturing siya ng consumer goods. Hindi ko kasi siya pwedeng sabihin pero let's say mga Tide, Downy, ganyan, yung mga ganong products, Pampers. So sila yung kliyente namin, and yung company namin, we manage yung systems na ginagamit nila to manufacture those products. So kung paano na ginagawa yung Pampers from the conception, so paano ginagawa yung artwork, yung naka-print na mukha ng baby dun sa Pampers, down to the packaging, to paano siya napupunta sa mga stores and manage for technically, teka lang
Tapos malalaman natin age ni Sir Karlito dahil dito. Joke lang.
Sinabi naman na before, hindi ba? Hindi ba na-reveal? Wala ba? Hindi nyo ba alam?
Hindi ko sure. Hindi ko yata sure.
30 na ako. Kaka-30 ko lang this year.
Oh, bata pa, sir.
Oo. Pero yun,
Bata pa.
tech,
Bawal daw
so,
titot, char.
oo nga, tito agad eh. So, so I've been working probably 10.5 years. Nag-start ako mag-work 19 years old. So,
Parang bata
um,
ng 19.
kasi sa Mapua,
Ah,
you can
ah.
graduate ng 3 years, 6 months yata for a
Oh,
4-year course. So,
pero
parang may head
ilang,
start.
ilang sem kayo nun, sir? Kasi parang ngayon sa Mapua, 4 sems sila.
Ganun pa rin, 4 sems. Oo. So, yung,
Hmm.
yung selling point ng Mapua is you can graduate a 4-year course
In
in
2
3
years.
years. I
2
think,
to
hindi naman
3
2
years.
years. 3 years, 3 months, 3 years, 6 months, parang ganun. So,
Mm-mm.
kaya ako nagmapua din. Yun. If regular ka. Pero syempre, kung bumagsak-bagsak ka, you can take more than 4
Siyempre,
years.
mm-mm.
So, ako,
Taray.
swerte lang din na naging regular ako that time.
Taray. On time.
Mm-mm. So, yun, 19 ako nag-work. Nag-start mag-work. Technically, I've worked for 3 companies. Pero it's still the same company. So, yung company kasi parang nag-restructure siya 3 times, went through technically 3 different companies siya. So, pag tingnan mo yung resume ko, it's listed na as 3 different companies. Pero hindi talaga ako lumipat ng building, hindi ako lumipat ng work, ganyan. Kasi parang ano lang, na-acquire lang yung company or nakikipag-merge lang yung company with another company, ganun.
Ah, okay. So, sir, may tanong dito kasi 4 sems sa Mapua. So, walang break yun. Yung ngayon kasi alam ko parang depende yata. Pero, 1
Um,
week,
yes,
meron
1
na
week lang yung break.
ganun. And
So,
then,
quarter
Friday.
system kami. Every sem namin is 3 months. May 1 week break ka in the middle. Yung sa 1 week na yun, siguro mga 3 days enrollment. So, parang 4 days ka lang magpapahinga. Ganun.
Grabe.
Tapos
So,
ganun ka for
feeling
3
ko,
years.
dahil mas marami ka pwedeng ma-share. So, should I give you the floor? Tara, may floor siya
Sige,
kay
okay
Jim.
lang.
Sige,
Wait.
sir. It's your time to shine.
Sige, ano bang gusto niyong malaman? I mean, may something pa ba kayong gustong malaman before I go to the
Hmm.
gist of it?
Oh, meron pa daw ba kayong gustong malaman?
Oh,
Paki-comment naman
doon sa
sa baba.
background. Doon sa background ko. Ganun. Baka
Sa
lang may tanong
background.
pa.
Baka lang. Baka lang may mag-comment.
Grabe, gastos. Oh, actually, magastos yung 4 sem. Siguro yung tuition ko nun. Alam ko nga mas mahal yung naging tuition ko nun kaysa kung nag-Ateneo ako. Parang ganun. Pag tinotal mo na yearly. Ayun. So, maswerte lang
Ayun, sir.
din na
Nakakuha ka ng
kinaya.
scholarships or talagang...
Meron kasi parang sa school, kapag naka-reach ka ng certain na average for the semester, pwede kang
Mm-mm.
makakuha ng half scholarship dun sa tuition or full scholarship. So may mga times na nakakakuha ako ng half or full. Pero konti lang, parang mga few terms lang. Ganun. Pero still, nakakatulong pa rin.
Oo naman,
So
sir.
nakakatipid.
Sobrang laking tulong ng scholarships. Ang dami na ring scholarships ngayon. I mean, hindi lang siya sa universities, like, pati ngayon sa government, yung sa
Mm.
governor, sa mayor. So, ganun kasi dito sa province namin. So, hindi ko
Mm.
sure sa Manila kung sino-sino yung mga ano. Pero, sure ako na per university, meron at meron yan. Unang-una kasi dun is yung
Yes.
mga university scholar like Dean's Lister ka, Presidential Lister ka. So, yun.
Mm.
Kaya
Yep.
magsikap kayo kasi sa totoo lang, mas masarap yung buhay ng estudyante. Mas nakakaipon ng estudyante kaysa ngayon na nagtatrabaho. Mas malaki ipon. Ewan ko kung gano'n sa inyo, pero kasi sa akin, mas malaki yung naiipon ko nung nag-aral pa ako. Kasi syempre
Mm-mm.
ngayon,
Agree naman,
may
agree.
pagbo-budget ka na. So, wala. Ang dami ng bills na nag-aantay sa'yo. Hindi katulad nung college na aral ka lang, may kuha ka ng scholarship, and then, kung gusto mo tumulong, syempre, tulong ka naman sa family mo, magbibigay ka. Pero kahit magbigay ka, meron eh. 'Di ba? So, ang laking tulong ng mga scholarship. Kaya yung mga nag-aaral dyan, pagbutihan yung mag-aral. Iya, may tanong pa ba kayo kay Sir Carlito? Bago siya mag-start ng kanyang pag-share, interviewin niyo na si Sir Carlito.
Sige, simulan na natin. And then kung may mga tanong pa, gawin natin later.
Okay, sir. Take
Sige.
it
So
away.
so yung plan ko lang naman was to share yung journey, yung personal journey from being, kasi yun yung request eh. So parang student ka, I mean, how did you transition from college tapos parang naging working individual? Ganyan. So I'll go through yung sinasabi ko online na hard truths. So don't expect na, I mean, maybe later. So kunyari kung may mga questions kayo na tips around how to, do a specific thing or paano i-navigate a certain situation. I won't talk about it explicitly. Yung gusto ko lang i-explain dito is ano yung hard truths that I realized when I made that transition. And siguro I'll give a few tips in the middle, like parang paano ko siya ni-navigate, ganyan. Pero this is going to be, I would say, something very uncomfortable. So if you're someone na sheltered, someone na, you know, um, have been a privileged person all your life, this is going to sound scary, maybe. But that's the point. That the point, yun yung point nung it being a hard truth. It's not going to go away just because ayaw niya siyang mangyari. Right? So, sige, let's go ahead. So, nakwento ko na slightly yung journey ko. I mean, when I graduated. I think first thing na that was really shocking to me at that point is parang nung gumraduate kasi ako, yung graduation kasi namin, it happens every term. Tapos parang meron akong, sobra akong nagmamadali at that time na makagraduate. Alam mo yun? Kasi parang meron akong mga kaklase or mga kabatch na um, 2 months before the graduation, parang ini-interview na ng mga companies, ganyan, nakakakuha na ng mga job. So parang may pressure sa akin na, uy, gusto ko na rin sanang makakuha ng ganun. So nag-a-apply na rin ako sa mga companies. Kasi meron kang feeling na, wait, napag-iiwanan na ba ako? Ganyan. So at 19 years old, I mean, probably kung graduating ka 19, 20, around that age, meron ng konting pressure na ganun eh, na, uy, kung yung mga kabatch mo nakakakuha na ng trabaho tapos ikaw wala pa, you're thinking na, wait, baka meron akong mali, hindi ako as marketable as the people I am with, ganyan. So, nagkaroon ako ng ganong um, dilemma. So, yun actually yung nag-drive na parang hindi ako nagpahinga talaga. So, I think I graduated November. Tama ba? O, napasa namin yung thesis October. We had to wait for like 3 to 4 weeks for us to graduate. So, kung nakagraduate ako ng November. January, nag-work na ako eh. So, parang ang pahinga ko lang talaga yung December, which is Pasko, which is usually naman, di ba? Bakasyon mga tao nun. So, I only had a month and a half. Tapos, January of 20, so November 2010, graduate ako. January of 2011, start na ako mag-work. As in, first week of January. So, um, ayun. So, I've been working for the last 10.5 years, I would say. Ano ba? 10 years, 7 months. Ganun. Tapos, so obviously, I've been with several teams already, I've worked with several people. I've been in several countries as part of my work, so I worked with several cultures na lang din. And so it really exposed me to, yung how to be, let's say, a working adult in a global world. Right? So kasi may mga jobs na hindi ka naman lalabas kailangan ng Pilipinas, you're keeping a small circle, ganyan. Pero yung nature of the work that I have, since it's IT, right? So we work a lot with other cultures and other nationalities. And may instances that I had to go to those countries and parang be an OFW for a short time. So kung may mga OFW dyan na nakikinig, na iintindihan ko na po yung hard. It was really hard for me to do that. So, hindi ko ma-imagine paano ginagawa ng mga OFW yung aabutin ng taon na hindi nakakauwi. Ganyan. So, saludo po kami sa lahat ng OFWs. But anyway, so let's try to go through all of the hard truths. Naka-pattern to from leadership seminars that I've done and I've attended over the years. Some of these may apply, and it actually applies mostly to um, yung mga employees, like yung mga nag-work for companies, which I think maybe majority of you will end up being, right? So siguro kung let's say dyan sa 65, 67, 65 listeners and the number of people here, let's say that this group of 70 people, probably 5 to 10% lang sa inyo yung, you know, would actually get into a business, be a CEO, be an owner of a business, right? I mean, the hard reality of it is that majority of the people, including ourselves, we may end up, growing old as an employee. We will end up growing, retiring as, someone's employee, and we have a boss. We were working for a boss. Yun yung reality of it. That's the way that the world works right now. And I know na merong mga jobs like streamers, ngayon usong-uso content creators, right? Working from home, gawa-gawa ng videos, you earn um, money from the videos, etc. So nag-iiba na rin yung landscape of working. Pero a big majority of it is still the traditional office jobs, 9 to 5 jobs, etc. Um, the number one hard truth that you need to understand, and this is something that's been um, very common sa generation ko. So we're a generation called the millennials, right? Then there's this generation called Gen Z, which is I think yung most of the viewers would fall into. Pero it's very common for both the millennials and the Gen Zs na yung parenting strategies, like how we were taken care of by our parents at that time, um, masyado tayong sheltered, right? So, nung time ko, parang yun, doon nagkakaroon ng transition yung culture from, traditional na parenting strategies ng mga parents natin na strict ganyan to mas nagiging inclusive. Naabutan niyo ba, alam niyo ba yung mga participation trophies? Narinig niyo na ba yung ganun? So parang before, kapag nasa school ka, meron kang top 3 lang, di ba? Yung top 3 lang sa class. And then eventually, nag-extend yun, naging top 10, and then biglang naging top 20. Ayan, hanggang sa eventually, parang lahat na pupunta na sila sa parang list of something. Tapos nakakakuha na rin ng mga trophies for coming in last. Ganun, which kind of doesn't make sense. So parang a lot of the children in my generation, they grew up being told that they were special. Alam mo yun? Yung parang, "Hindi, sige, magpursige ka lang, mag-aral ka lang, ganyan. Tapos, makakuha ka lang good grades. Eventually, makakakuha ka rin ng trabaho maganda na gusto mo, ganyan." And the reality is, it doesn't really happen that much. Right? So, parang, alam niyo ba yung feeling na, kunyari, top-notcher kayo nung high school kayo, valedictorian, ganyan. Tapos salutatorians kayo. Tapos napunta kayo sa college. So nag-mix na let's say napunta kayo sa malaking university. Tapos pagdating nyo doon, ay, hindi pala ako matalino. Alam niyo yung ganong feeling. So it's the same feeling when you get to the real world. Marirealize nyo hindi talaga kayo special. Parang, okay, you think you're the best in college, taas ng grades mo, ganyan. Pagdating mo sa office, guess what? There are 10 other people na cum laude din, summa cum laude din. They're all, better than you, pero you're all stuck doing the same entry-level job. Ganun talaga eh. Ganun yung mangyayari. So, you need to understand that if you've been told all your life na special ka, ganyan, you'll do great things, it doesn't really happen that often. So, alam niyo yung kanta na Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Hindi ko alam kung narinig niyo na yung kanta na yun. Pero there's this motivational speaker. Sinasabi niya lagi na kung gusto nyong masampal ng realidad, go through the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. So, tingnan nyo yung mga storya ng mga tao na nag-fail in life at hindi naging mga pangarap nila. Kasi di ba ganun yan usually? Alala nyo yung nung nag-boom yung vlogging, nag-boom yung paggawa ng videos, paggawa ng content. Parang lahat ng tao nag-vlog na and magawa ng content. Kasi ang nakikita nila, uy, lahat ng vloggers kumikita ng sobrang dami, ganyan. Pero what you're seeing is just a very, very small percentage of the people who are vlogging. So behind every successful vlogger that you see, meron dyan thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of other vloggers that, made one video, never made it. Wala na, iniwan na yung pangarap. So, um, just i-ground nyo lang yung sarili nyo dun sa thought na yon na hindi lahat ng nakikita nyo, especially in social media, right? Yung mga successful vloggers, successful content creators, hindi yan yung standard of the world that you live in. the reality of it is most likely, a big majority of you won't get there. And it's not being pessimistic. It's not telling you na parang, uy, wag kayong mangarap kanyan. I'm just saying na, save yourself the disappointment, because the reality is it may not happen for you. So it just helps you be grounded, di ba? So instead of setting up yourself na sobrang taas ng standard mo, ganyan. Tapos feeling mo, magiging CEO ako, magiging boss ako ng sarili kong company, ganyan, ganyan. It probably won't happen. Right? So just remember, if you've been told you're special, there are other special people. And there's a lot of other special people. Special doesn't mean. Okay? So, hard truth number one. Oh, hi po, Tita Janet. Thanks for joining. Um, okay. Second hard truth. The world doesn't really care, and the world will not stop for you, which is kind of sad. Pero tandaan nyo, you're just one person in a big, big world, big, big universe, right? So, when you're working and you have bills to pay, and I think I tweeted something saying like, pagod na ako pero walang pake yung bills ko tsaka yung due dates ko sa feelings ko. Parang ganun. That's true. So, hindi porket tinatamad ka magtrabaho at this day, right? Wala kang gana, bumangon, wala kang gana gawin yung dapat mong gawin. It doesn't mean that it should be that way. Right? Hindi naman titigil yung mundo para sa'yo. Diba? So, regardless if wala ka sa mood magtrabaho, palapit yung due date ng mga credit card bills mo, ng mga kuryente nyo, tubig. So, the world will not really stop. So, we've been advocating like it's okay not to be okay, take rest, ganyan, that's fine. Pero people also need to realize na, merong thin line between self-care and then sucking it up and being an adult about it. Yun yung mahirap eh. Kasi kunyari pag estudyante ka, di ba? Kung hindi ka makakapasok dahil um, masama pakiramdam mo, okay lang yun. Pwede kang magpaalam sa teacher, ganyan, and then the next day you catch up, ganyan. It doesn't always work that way kapag nagtatrabaho ka na. Kasi minsan hindi ka papayagan na mag-sick leave even kapag wala kang um, kapalit sa trabaho. Diba? So, sometimes you just need to be an adult about something and then just suck it up. Kailangan mo lang gawin talaga yung dapat mong gawin. Dahil kailangan mo siyang gawin. Okay? And I think that should be pretty familiar with a lot of people. Pero, ayun, hindi hihinto yung mundo para sa inyo. Kung may problema kayo, okay, problema nyo yan. Pero, it's your call. If you're going to put off other things dahil may problema kayo, matatambakan lang kayo. So, anong gagawin nyo? Hayaan nyo bang matambakan kayo or just suck it up today? Okay, so the world will not stop for you. Third realization that I had is magiging responsible na ako sa sarili ko and sobrang hirap kumita ng pera. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious when lagi naman sinasabi ng parents natin, di ba, na parang, alam mo ba, parang tatai lang kami ng pera, ganyan, or something, basta something similar. Sure ako lahat naman kayo dinaanan yun sa parents nyo, na parang, bakit ka nagsasayang ng pagkain, akala mo ba, ganyan, kung san-san lang namin kinukuha yung pera. And as kids, as students, di ba, parang okay, naririnig natin yun, it makes sense, pero it doesn't really hit you na mahirap kumita ng pera until such time na ikaw na yung kumakayod para kumita ka ng pera talaga. So, you suddenly realize na, ay, oo nga, parang ako na responsible dito. So, kagsasweldo ka, let's say, twice a month, kinsenas katapusan, ganyan, makakuha ka ng sweldo. Pagdating ng sweldo mo, sabihin natin, somewhere between 15 to 30% nun, wala na kagad eh. Kasi matataksan ka na. Di ba? So, may parte ng pera na pinaghirapan mo, mapupunta na sa gobyerno. Tapos hindi mo alam saan napupunta sa gobyerno. Di ba? So, ako dati, ginagawa ko nun, kasi yung payslip ko dati mahaba na papel. Ginagawa ko nun kapag nakarating na siya sa akin, pag dinownload ko na sa website, scroll down ako sa dulo. Kasi ayoko makita yung tax na nabibigay ko sa gobyerno. Parang at that time, ang daming issue sa gobyerno, di ba? So, parang nakaka-stress isipin na parte ng pinaghirapan ko for the last 15 to 30 days napunta lang sa bulsa ng kurakot na kusing. So, nare-realize mo na yun. Hindi mo naman marirealize yun pag estudyante ka. Kasi pag estudyante ka, bigyan ka lang ng baon ng parents mo every day. every week. Yan. So, okay lang. Ikaw bahala paano mo gagamitin. Pero kapag yung ikaw na yung nagpupuyat para dun sa pera, ganyan, masakit na parang every peso really counts. Tapos, ayun, dun mo rin ma-realize na yun nga, responsible ka na sa sarili mo. So, meron ka ng mga bills to pay. Siguro swerte yung iba kapag um, nakatira pa sila with the family. So, pwede kayong maghati dun sa expenses. Diba? Pero for some, di ba, na parang mga breadwinners ng families, unang sweldo pa lang nila, ubos ka agad. Kasi syempre, magpapaaral pa ng kapatid. Yan. So, ang hirap na kumita ng pera, lalo na hindi mo rin siya agad-agad may enjoy kung meron kang mga responsibilidad as a member of family. Kasi dito sa Pilipinas, ganun tayo eh. If you go to other countries like sa States, ganyan, sila naman um, kapag bumukod ka na and you're an adult, hindi ka naman required na parang buhayin mo pa yung kapatid mo or buhayin mo pa yung parents mo. Kasi hindi ganun yung culture nila. Pero yung culture natin dito sa atin, yung pera mo most likely hindi mo yan solo eh. Lalo na kapag young adult ka pa, tapos nakatira ka pa with your family. Diba? Hindi mo sosolohin yan. So doon ma-realize na okay, ang hirap nga kumita ng pera. So it makes sense kung ano yung sinasabi ng mga parents nyo, ng mga estudyante pa kayo. And eventually, kanyari, nagbigay kayo ng pera nyo sa mga pamangkin nyo, ganyan, or mga malakakabata nyong kapatid, tapos nakikita nyo parang, quote-unquote, sinasayang. Eventually, masasabi nyo rin yung same things na sinasabi sa inyo ng parents nyo. Okay, so, yun, marirealize nyo yun. So, it's pretty obvious, lagi yung sinasabi sa inyo na mahirap kumita ng pera, pero it will really hit you kapag kayo na yung kumakayod para dun sa pera na yun. So, yung sinasabi ni Gabs kanina, di ba, na parang, minsan yung sweldo mo dumadaan lang sa palad mo kasi nasa budget mo na kagad. Paglabas nung sweldo mo, wala na, nakalaan na yan sa mga bills mo, ganyan, matitira na lang siguro 500, 1,000. I think at some point, lahat ng tao pinagdaanan yun. Lalo na kung nagsisimula ka pa lang. O, literal na payslip lang talaga siya. Yung mga terms na dumaan lang yung sweldo. Ganun talaga yung nangyayari. So, mahirap talaga. So, kung kayo galing kayo sa mga households na alam niyo yun, na parang maliit na bagay lang yung pera para sa inyo, be thankful for that kasi privileged kayo. Pero mahirap kumita ng pera as in. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4, and medyo may sample ako dito. Eventually, and always, hindi man always, pero most of the time, you will be forced to work with people and systems that you actually hate. So, usong-uso yan ngayon, di ba? Alam niyo yung cancel culture or yung social justice, a lot of that stuff. Very, very, very uso yan sa mga millennials and Gen Zs na parang, gusto ko ng gusto ko ng work culture na hindi ako nag-time in, time out, ganyan. Gusto ko ng work culture na, inclusive lahat ng tao. Gusto ko ng work culture yung pipili, yung pwede kong i-announce kung anong pronoun gusto ko, kung they call me she, he, him, her, etc. And that's all good, right? I mean, it's part of having a progressive culture in the world. And for example, some companies right now, pag may mga email sila, meron silang signature, so nakalagay yung pangalan. And then they have to put a pronoun, kunyari, she, her. Yun yung how they address that person. Diba? Kasi it's part of being inclusive. Pero the reality of it, as you grow and as you work for, several companies or do different jobs, um, you will eventually end up working for people that you hate. People you hate, mga sistemang ayaw nyong systems that won't really make sense, and systems that you hate, pero you just have to be an adult about it. Kasi ganun siya eh, right? You're in a position, you're not going to be in a position to make any changes at that point. So sometimes kailangan nyo lang, go with the flow and then try to get up high enough to actually influence the system. Bigyan ko kayo ng sample. Yung MV mo campaign ng music video, something ngayon ng housemates, di ba? It doesn't really make sense. So kung alam niyo yung issue around the current MV mo campaign, yung sa Can't Get Out, that was a song na kinompose ni Jem along with Ashley. Diba? So it made sense na parang yung naging battle cry ng mga tao, bakit kailangan pa na na i-raffle at ipalaban sa campaign yung music video, that's that's Ashley's song, ganyan, dapat sa kanya mapunta yan. And it made sense, right? When the tweets came out, you know, when the mechanics came out, I saw the tweets and to me, okay, it makes sense. Oo nga eh, kasi parang part siya ng pag-create ng kanta eh. It should go to her. But eventually, you're looking at a system that actually works in the meantime for the business, right? Tandaan nyo, ABS-CBN, Star Magic, whatever, is still a business. They're a business first and foremost. And the purpose of a business is to make money. Diba? So, tapos, tignan nyo, dun sa first campaign, ng MV mo, they got what? Close to, I don't know, how many millions of pesos sinakuha nila in that short campaign. Right? So, obviously, it's a business model that works. And then, you have to realize ABS-CBN doesn't have a franchise, diba? They're losing billions. I think they reported 11, 12 to 13 billion losses last year. Diba? So, it's a business that is in deficit. So, as fans or as supporters, right? It's a system that we hate. Ayoko na nga maglabas, 'di ba? Parang kailangan ngayon yung system ngayon is kailangan yung maglabas ng pera just for the chance to see your idols on screen, ganyan, or somewhere. Pero yun siya eh. Ganun talaga. Kaya nga siya tinawag na show business. So they need to make money. So it's the same way when you work for someone or a company. You will eventually get into a system that you hate, right? Merong mga system na walang sense. Yan. Kapag it doesn't really make sense for the system, but it works for someone, kaya siya ganun, right? And then, you just have to be an adult about it. I think yung best thing that you can do is, be good at your job, eventually get to a system or a position of power and authority for you to influence changes in the system, diba? Pero until that happens, you're going to end up, working with uh, working with the system that you hate or working for people that you hate. Okay, that's number 4. Number 5, and this is something about patience, really. So after number 5, ito na yung parang sa pagdating sa work and career. Tapos parang yung mga later on, ito na yung sa mga everyday life. So number 5, yung best things in life, career, relationship, whatever, you need to realize that those things will really take time to achieve. Um, ano ba explain to? So right now, social media, right? Hindi ko alam kung gaano kadami sa inyo yung from the pre-Facebook, pre-Netflix generation. Pero back then, in the days, nung wala pang mga DSL, cable internet, fiber, alam niyo ba yung speed ng mga internet namin? 56 kbps. Kilobytes per second. Diba ngayon ang bilangan natin, Mbps? So, kilobyte is 1,000 bytes. A megabyte is 1 million bytes. So, ang normal na internet speed ngayon, what? 5 o 8? 8 to 15 Mbps. Kami noon, 56 kbps. Tapos, tama, yung sinasabi ni Chuzy. Ano yan, prepaid card. So, magsa-scratch ka pa ng card para loadan mo yung telephone line nyo at makakonect ka sa internet. Literal na pag maglo-load ka ng picture, parang aabutin ka ng 30 seconds bago mag-load yung picture. Kung magda-download ka ng kanta, let's say 3-minute na song, 4 minutes na song, siguro mga, I don't know, 2 hours, ganyan. So, tawag doon dial-up internet. So kami, generation namin, sanay kami sa mababagal. Diba? Pag nanonood kami ng TV series dati, kailangan namin antayin yung time slot niya sa TV network. So kunyari, manonood ako ng Ghost Fighter nung early 2000s. 5:30 yon. Kailangan kong humabol galing nakauwi ko, 5:30. Tapos wala kang control, walang pausing siya, parang Netflix na may pause button, ganyan. Tapos kailangan kapag mag-CR ka, tapos commercial, magmamadali ka, kasi gusto mong mabutan yung next na cut ng episode, ganyan. So nasanay kami, in some sense, na hindi instant lahat. Now, when you go to the next generation, basta yung Facebook, Netflix, etc. Sila very instant lahat eh, e-shopping, ganyan. So, kunyari, gusto kang panoorin ng TV series, di ba? You don't need to wait for the weekend or the next week para makita yung next episode. Lahat na-upload na, nanonood ka na lang, di ba? Kung gusto mo bumili ng something, order ka something from, Lazada, Shopee, whatever. Tapos makakakuha ka ng item probably in the next day or two. Walang ganun sa amin dati kailangan pumunta to the actual store, bumili, ganyan. So, it's not really instant. Tapos, di ba? Let's say, dating, di ba? Nung time namin, walang Tinder, walang Bumble, walang, ano pa mga apps ngayon. I don't really know ano yung ibang apps. Pero walang mga ganong apps. So, we really have to go through, the actual process na, ask a girl out, sa prom, ganyan, be rejected sa prom, go to the prom alone, whatever, or, mabasted ka several times. And it's not something na ginagawa, I think, ngayon, lalo na, yan, for example, ngayon, pandemic, everything's really online, text-based, di ba? Parang a lot of people right now, they haven't really made, they haven't really had the training and the experience to have deep, meaningful relationships. Kasi lahat online eh, di ba? Parang kunyari, the concept of ghosting, di ba? Yung concept of ghosting started what, just a few years ago, di ba? Dati when you had to break up with someone, you had to, have a discussion, magkikita kayo, iyakan, ganyan, away-away. Ngayon, pag ayaw mo na sa isang tao, mo na lang replyan. Tapos na, di ba? So parang a lot of people right now, they haven't really gone through the practice of um, of having made those mistakes and going through all of those challenges, right? Kasi lahat instant eh, 'di ba? Nasanay tayo lahat na online, instant, lahat ng everything is text-based. And kitang-kita yan sa Kumu. For example, dito sa Kumu, 'di ba? You have what, 9 people joining a live stream, lahat na umakyat. How many speak? People, you have 1 or 2 people who actually speak. Bakit? Ano yung dahilan ng mga iba? Nahihiya ako. I mean, my God, some of you are what, 18, 19 years old, and you're shy to talk to people. Paano kayo makaka-survive in the real world if you don't know how to talk to people? And another factor, ngayon kapag nag-a-apply ka for jobs, hindi na default na skill set ang people skills. They actually pay people to talk to other people. Isipin niyo yun. Ngayon, we actually call people skills a skill set because we don't have a lot of people who know how to actually talk to people. Kasi lahat ginagawa natin online na eh. Diba? Everything is text-based, everything is direct message-based. Pag nakita kayo in person, what? Wala, hindi kayo marunong makapag-small talk. Hindi kayo marunong yung mga kamusta na, kumusta? Kasi hindi nyo na-practice yung patience of going through all of these experiences of having interpersonal relationships dahil sa mga sistema na meron tayo ngayon, di ba? And tying that into the patience factor, right? So nasanay kayo lahat instant, nasanay instant ang TV series, instant ang pag-stream ng music. Na some people actually think na parang, okay, if I join a company, yung super pumped up ka na, gusto ko, I got into a company I work for, ganyan. I want to make an impact. I want to have purpose, ganyan. So a lot of people think na, okay, having job satisfaction, working for a company that you really like, or doing a job that you really like. A lot of people now, I mean, younger people now, a lot of them think that you can achieve that in 1 to 2 years. You can't. I mean, ako, for example, I've been working for the same company for 10.5 years. I can really say na I like my job. Yeah. I mean, it's good pay, good benefits, ganyan. Pero I haven't gone to the point na parang, alam mo yung feeling ko meron akong purpose. Ganun. And a lot of yung mga idealists na pag-graduate, yung sense of purpose nyo. Pag fresh out of college ka, parang gusto mo work for a company with purpose. I want to work for, I don't know, Google, let's say. Kasi maganda work culture sa Google, ganyan. Tapos I work for a good company. And then, 8 months down the line, magawa ka ng entry-level job. You get demotivated kasi hindi mo ma-feel na you're making an impact. Of course not. You've been in the job for like 8 months. Not a lot of people make an impact even in the first 2 years. So parang hindi na siya, mabilis na ma-demotivate yung mga tao because hindi na sila patient enough to actually realize na yung best things in life, they actually take time. Right? Job satisfaction, relationships, fulfillment sa buhay. These are things that you need to spend, I don't know, probably decades for you to get to that sense of purpose or sense of fulfillment. Diba? Okay, tayo sa mga parang non-work stuff. Number 6, you realize na your body is actually getting old. And yung sinasabi ng health is wealth, totoo yun. So parang pag mga teenager years, 20s, ganyan, kaya magpuyatan yun, magpupuyat kayo hanggang mga 3 a.m., gising kayo ng 7, tapos buhay na buhay pa rin kayo. Yan. Pagdating nyo ng mga, I don't know, probably late 20s nyo, realize nyo na, hindi ko na kaya yun. Ako, for example, hindi ako nakaka-function ng maayos kapag hindi ako nakaka 6 hours na tulog. Literal na kapag natulog ko, let's say 4 hours. Pag gising ko, after those 4 hours, either may sinat ako, sinisipan ako, may allergy ako, ganyan. Which never really happened to me nung college ako. And if you think about it, nung college ako, wala akong pangkain eh. Payat ako nung college, hindi maganda na presyo, ko show my rice, ganyan, puro couching. Pero okay ako nun, diba? Tapos mag-realize mo pagtanda mo, mas may access ka na sa better nutrition, pero at the same time, yung body mo is actually getting old. Pag weekend, gusto mo na matulog, ganyan. Tapos, kailangan mo na ng gamot, yan, mga maintenance, blah, blah, blah. So yung sinasabi ni Cabs kanina na, yung mga estudyante enjoy yan. It's really, hindi siya true. Kasi I would still say na parang estudyante ka, start taking care of yourself that early. Pero yun nga eh, may mga bagay kang magagawa ng bata ka na hindi mo magagawa pagtanda mo. So one of the really hard realizations is that kahit anong exercise mo, kahit anong diet mo, ganyan, your body will eventually fail. And it will eventually go old, grow weak, ganyan. Okay? So health is wealth. Tie into that, marirealize mo na habang kumikita ka ng pera habang tumatanda ka. So mas nagkakaroon ka ng pera, mas nagkakaroon ka ngayon ng, financial capacity para gawin yung mga bagay na gusto mo. You will actually realize that you have less free time habang tumatanda ka. Alam niyo yung cycle na yon, yung you're young enough, you're either young enough, rich enough, or have enough time. You can only have two. You can be, you can have a lot of money and a lot of time, but you're not young anymore. You can be young enough and have a lot of time, but you don't really have a lot of money, or that you are um, young enough and um, rich enough, but you don't really have time. So, totoo yun. So, habang tumatanda ka, di ba, kunyari, oh, nagkakapera na ako, kaya ko ng, ako, for example, nag-build ako ng gaming PC ko, probably last year, bumili ako ng gaming PC. And I bought it at a price na hindi ko ma-achieve nung college ako. Kasi gusto ko maglaro eh. Sabi ko, pandemic, nasa bahay lang naman ako. Gawa akong gaming PC. Ganyan. Pero grabe, siguro, I don't know, naka-isang laro lang ako. I mean, I finished one game. Tapos wala na, hindi ko na siya masyado nagagamit ngayon. Literal na, I can go 2 weeks without opening that PC. Kasi wala na akong time eh. So during the weekdays, puro ko work, ganyan. Pagkatapos ng gusto mo na magpahinga or manonood on live streams, ganyan. And I don't really have the time or the energy to, game. Pagdating naman ng weekend, pagod ka or you have to spend time with family, with loved ones, so you have to rest, ganyan. So, you realize na, okay, as you grow old, nawawalan ka talaga ng oras. Okay? You will really have less free time habang tumatanda ka. Okay? Next realization, you will actually lose a lot of people along the way. So yung mga tao dyan na tropa is life, ganyan yung parang, gusto ko marami akong kaibigan. Hard reality, you probably would only have, 5 to 6 close friends. You will lose a lot of people along the way. Like for example, gano'ng kadami sa inyo yung, nung nag-start yung pandemic, nung hindi nyo na nakikita yung mga kaibigan nyo, just stop talking to these people. Diba? I can say I probably have 15 people I used to call, I called, friends, quote unquote friends, pero I haven't really talked to them, as much. Siguro binati ko sila nung Pasko. Oy, pre, happy birthday. Or happy, sorry, Merry Christmas, ganyan. Ngayon, wala. We don't really talk that much. Diba? And it's the reality of things, right? Kasi hindi naman lahat ng relationships mo would be very deep and meaningful. At a maximum, we probably have, 10 close friends outside of your family. And yun yung mga solid na talagang kaibigan mo. Pero just you need to face the truth na you won't really have a lot of friends or people you call friends right now. Probably fair weather friends. So when you say fair weather friends, ito yung mga kaibigan nyo na nandyan lang kapag masaya, okay. When times get tough, nawawala. Okay. And you need to be accepting of that. Lalo na if you anchor your happiness or your self-worth sa dami ng kaibigan mo, you're going to be in for a bad adulthood if you do that. Kasi yun nga, you will actually lose a lot of people along the way. You're going to burn a lot of bridges along the way, either for your self-care reasons, for your mental health. But you need to understand and, just accept the fact that, people actually leave. Some of them come back, some of them don't. Okay? Another realization, you will fail and make a lot of mistakes all of the time, right? So, kung perfectionist kayo, sorry, walang ganyan sa real world. You will fail a lot of times. You will have a lot of mistakes. Mapagalitan kayo several times in your job or whatever you do, right? Alam mo sinasabi nila na fail 7 times, get back up sa 8th time, whatever. That's what basically adulthood is. You make some mistakes, you learn from those mistakes, and then you move forward. Coming back to that, ganun lang talaga yung adulthood, to be honest. Things will get very, very monotonous and routine as you grow old. So kung kayo very spontaneous kayo na people, hold on. Na-disconnect ba ako? Or naririnig pa ba ako? Parang nawalan ako internet. Okay pa po, okay. So, adulthood is very monotonous, very boring, and you can ask a lot of adults, lalo na ngayon na work from home, your day is going to look very, very similar. And it's just the reality of it, right? Kasi 8 hours or more than 8 hours of your day, you're just working. You probably take 2 hours to rest. or a few more hours to rest, and then 6 to 8 hours to sleep. Yun na yung buhay mo. A lot of adults will fall into into a routine as they grow older. So most of you, I would say, would probably have the same life. It's going to be very monotonous. It's going to be very routine. Like me, for example, my day is like wake up, feed the cats, clean out yung pupu ng mga pusa, get breakfast, work. After work, work out, dinner, clean up after the cats, pakainin uli sila, tapos sleep. That's my typical day. Or singit nyo yung mga live stream, Twitter in the middle. Ganyan. Pero that's what basically my day is. That's what my day has been for the last, I don't know, more than a year since the pandemic started. So magiging monotonous talaga, right? Um, so you need to understand that a big chunk of your life will become very routine eventually, and that the good thing about those things though, if kapag meron kang ginawang something exciting, like you go to a beach, ganyan, nagbakasyon kayo, you will cherish those moments. Kasi yun yung mga moments na, wow, parang nag-enjoy ako outside of what I've been doing. Alam niyo yun, yung parang pag nag-meet kayo ng friends nyo, pag-uusapan niya lang uli ng mga friends nyo is the last time that you guys met, the last time kayong uminom or nag-vacation, ganyan. Kasi yun na lang yung exciting sa buhay. Everything else, routine. It's very mundane and very sad, pero that's the reality of it. Um, okay, part of being adult, you will make a lot of hard and complex choices, right? Hindi na alam niyo yung mga I've always hated this concept that we have online na parang let's say political. I don't want to get political, pero right now there are two political sides. You have pro-government, let's say mga tinatawag din ng mga DDS, right? And then you have the opposition, which is yung tinatawag ngayon na dilawan, di ba? Which is weird because I don't get why people would, kind of um bound ano ba? I don't understand how people can contain themselves into specific parties when life itself isn't really black and white. Diba? There are things that the government does well, there are things that they don't do well. There are things that make sense for the opposition. There are things that they say that don't really make sense. And when you're an adult, you start to understand that life is not really black and white. Hindi siya tama at mali. A lot of the things will sound, right, but it's not really right. A lot of the things that sound wrong, you know, are actually right. Diba? And as an adult, you have to understand that a lot of times, probably daily, you will have to face ambiguous situations and you have to make hard choices and complex choices. Hindi siya, doing what's right and not doing what's wrong. It's more complicated than that. Merong mga bagay na you need to really think about, weigh the pros and cons. You may have to make a decision that is not popular for the greater good, because that's what being an adult is. Especially if you're a leader, right? If you're in a position in your company or your organization where you are a leader, you're the one making the tough decisions. Like for example, myself, I probably fired what 15 people for this pandemic alone, and it sucks, diba? But I needed to do it because it's a business, diba? These people are, yung skills na meron sila, they're not really something that we need. We can't find jobs for them, so we have to let them go. It's a hard choice, but it's something that I have to do for the greater good. Because if we don't do it, the company ends up losing money. We end up, you know, not paying a lot of people. Ganyan. So you make a lot of hard and complex choices day in and day out. And that's just being an adult. You need to understand that may mga bagay talagang ganito. I mean, there are things na very uncomfortable, and just because they're uncomfortable doesn't really mean that you have to avoid them, right? Ano ba? I can give another example for that topic. Recently, in my fanboy Twitter, so I have a fan Twitter account, iba yung Carlito. I've recently started to read basher accounts. Alam niyo yung mga troll accounts na nang babash lang sa mga idols natin. I've recently started reading the tweets from a number of those accounts. And I think I tweeted something similar to this. Pero you know what? if you filter out yung bastos na bunganga nila and how they actually say things, if you filter out yung paninira nila na ad hominem, which is yung paninira lang ng character but it doesn't really hold merit. Some of the things that they say actually make sense. So they said a lot of things about the MV Mo campaign, which I highlighted earlier. It makes sense, right? And that's how you. I mean, to me, that's how you should look at the situation before you make a decision if it's right or wrong, right? You don't just say na, no, that's not right kasi hindi yan yung paniniwala ko. No, it doesn't work that way. You should look at both sides of an argument and then make an informed decision. How can you make an informed decision if ang alam mo lang is yung side na biased ka, di ba? How do you know if the other side is actually making sense or not? Ano mo masasabing tama ka o mali? And that's, I think, what you should be doing as an adult, right? Hindi pwedeng hindi kasi against yan dun sa paniniwala nung current side na kinakampihan ko. No, it doesn't make sense that way. And I actually had to think about that nung I was filling up yung form dun sa Snuggles. May part doon na parang what fandom ka part, parang are you Solid Gale, Ralph Gale, whatever. I first checked, I think, Solid Gale. Ay, hindi, parang chinek ko yata was some other, parang ganun. I didn't want to check Solid Gale at that time kasi I know in myself and I've told Gale this. Sabi ko, Gale, if I see you doing something wrong, I'm going to call you out on it and I hope okay lang sa yun. And she said okay lang sa akin yan. So parang it didn't make sense to me na parang tawagin ko yung sarili kong Solid Gale because hindi naman I'm going to side with what's right. Parang ganun. So it's going and I trust Gale to make the right decisions, day in and day out. Pero parang it felt wrong to me to contain myself in one side. Parang ganun. So yun, I mean, shinare ko lang yan. Sige, ano pa ba? Okay, last point, and this is probably where I'll close. You have to accept the fact that as you grow old, marami kang magiging what ifs. Alam mo yun? As you make these hard decisions, as you go through life, as you stick to the jobs that you know, marami kang magiging what if. So for example, let's say sino yun? Si Lapel kanina. Gusto niya mag-education, right? I wanted to be a teacher. Definitely. Kaya ako ginagawa itong mga live stream na to, yung mga live stream kong turo-turo ng kung ano-ano. Kasi I really like to teach. Passionate ako about teaching. But at the same time, I needed to be practical about it. And let's face it, right? Teaching doesn't really generate a lot of money. I don't know. Depende siguro if you're a professor in a big university, may master's degree ka, then probably you can score like what 80,000 a month, parang ganun. But if you're like the usual teacher, let's say in a public school or a private school, you earn I don't know, probably less than 20K a month, maybe less. And depending on your lifestyle, that's not going to be a lot, diba? So I needed to be practical about it. So marami akong what if. So what if nag-teacher ako? What if I became a professor? What if I did the work that I wanted? Actually, yung pinakabilaki kong what if, gusto ko maging scientist. Pero dito sa Pilipinas kasi wala tayong malalakas sa science programs, hindi bayad ng maayos sa mga scientists. So it wasn't really a practical thing back then. So marami kang what ifs. And then eventually, iisipin mo na parang, hindi, sige, gagawin ko na lang kapag nakaluwag-luwag ako sa work, ipon muna ako, ganyan, aral ako uli. And then eventually you get to that point, tapos parang may isa ka na naman problem or another priority ka na naman back then. So you push off the goal. Parang, hindi, sige, next year na lang. Next year na lang uli. Tapos eventually, wala na, hindi mo na siya magagawa. Ganun lang. So you will have a lot of those moments. Same thing with relationships, right? You will lose a lot of people. Magkakaroon ka ng mga what if. What if pinurso ko si ganito instead na si ganito? Ganyan. What if binalikan ko yung ex ko versus nag-propose dito sa current girlfriend ko? Marami kang magiging ganun. And then eventually, you don't have the time to actually explore those what ifs. And kailangan nyo lang tanggapin na, you know, mananatili na lang silang what if talaga. And just have to deal with it. Okay. I think yun lang. I mean, ang dami ko palang sinabi, 11-11 na. O mag-wish na kayo, 11-11. Sana maging CEO ako eventually. So, Cavs, Lapel, meron ba tayong questions? Hindi ko actually sinilip yung Twitter kung may questions. And I hope it wasn't very negative for a lot of people here. I mean, I'm just saying the truth. Really. I mean, mabuti nang alam nyo na ngayon, lalo na if you're just starting. And I'm pretty sure
Ay,
marami pang ibang bagay na hindi ako nasabi, pero um, it's better that you know this early. Okay, go.
mm.
Questions.
Questions? Oh my. Hindi, I would just like to add lang, sir, no? Kasi nabanggit mo yung about motivation. So, marami kasing students kasi na, tawag dito, yung ideal world sa reality. Like, nung nag-aaral ka, sasabihin mo sa sarili mo, in 1 to 2 years, makakaipon na ako and such. 'Di ba? Makapagtrabaho sa magandang company. But then, kailangan maging realistic din.
Mm.
Kasi hindi lahat ng bagay aayon sa kung ano yung gusto mo. So, dapat, as early as now, maging aware din yung mga tao kung ano talaga yung nangyayari sa reality. Tama ba ako?
Mm.
Baka mamaya mali ako na sinasabi
Eh,
dito.
tama naman, yung ine-explain mo, sorry, narinig pa ba ako? Okay. May error
Opo.
kasi akong parang kapit daw signal, whatever. Pero sige, yung sinasabi mo is something called survivorship bias. In
Mm.
psychology, meron tayong tinatawag na cognitive biases, kung paano
Yes, yes,
nagfa-function
yes.
yung brain natin.
Mhm.
So a type of cognitive bias is survivorship bias. Survivorship bias is, you're taking um, success stories as they are as the norm. So yung ina-explain ko kanina, 'di ba? Parang if you're seeing yung vloggers ganyan and you're seeing, mga kaibigan mo na in 2 years parang supervisor na ganyan and you think that you can do something similar at madali lang gawin 'yon. What you're actually seeing are exceptions. They are not the rule, 'di ba? So you need to realize and you need to anchor yourselves na when you see success stories, hindi yan normal. There's a reason that they're success stories. There are exceptions to the rule. Behind every success, you have 1,000 failures. Diba? Yung mga self-help books na yan, yung mga books about winning in life, ganyan-ganyan, whatever, they're there because the authors are successful. Every Behind every successful self-help author, meron kang hundreds and thousands that didn't really get published. And think about this, no one publishes their failure. So lahat ng mga nababasa niyo mga self-help articles, how to get rich in 2 years, ganyan. Lahat yan are very exaggerated. It doesn't reflect the reality. It can give you tips to get there, right? Pero the reality is, it's most likely it's going to be hard. It's going to be very, very, very hard to achieve that. It doesn't mean na hindi kayo kailangan mag-strive to get there. Pero the reality is it's going to be very hard. It's not going to be as easy as it looks on the books or in the videos, etc. So that's what survivorship bias is. Pero yun, ganun nga siya. So sometimes you need to make compromises. Kailangan nyo tandaan na meron kayong mga pangarap na hindi nyo maaabot and you need to be practical about it.
Kasi, 'di ba, kung alam niyo yung theory ni Freud, hindi ko alam kung familiar kayo, like, yung iceberg. Nakikita niyo lang yung top ng iceberg, like the success, the fame, etc. But then, yung nasa ilalim ng iceberg, the failures, the disappointments, sobrang dami. So, kailangan natin siyang pagdaanan sa buhay. Kasi iba-iba tayo ng definition naman sa buhay sa pagiging successful. May iba na successful kasi masaya sila sa kung anong meron sila. May mga successful na, yung financially stable sila. So, iba-iba tayong definition ng success.
Yes.
So, yun. Yung nabanggit din ni Sir na yun sa systems ng companies, meron talaga kayong mapapasukang ganong companies na minsan pa nga sarili nilang company nasusuway nila yung sistema nila. And mabigat yun sa loob mo. And you have to make choices na hindi pwedeng yes ka lang ng yes or no ka lang ng no. You have to make a choice for yourself kasi you need to grow not just as a person but bilang employee, 'di ba? So yun, meron tayong complex choices like would you like to stay or mag-leave sa job? Kailangan mo ding i-weigh yun. Kasi hindi lahat, yun nga, sabi nga ni Sir, hindi lahat privileged enough. So, sobrang swerte ng mga tao na kahit hindi ganong kalaki yung sahod, and then masaya naman sila sa ginagawa nila, okay lang. May iba kasi na kailangan todo kayod. Like, pwede na hindi lang pwede na isang job lang. Like, nagkakaroon pa sila ng sideline job, naggagawa pa sila ng business. Kasi ito yung reality. Like, yun nga yung sabi nila, hindi ka pwede mag-stick sa isang job lang, isa lang yung ginagawa mo sa sobrang hirap ng buhay. So, yun yung nangyayari mostly sa mga Pinoy. Kung may i-compare nyo din naman yung country natin sa ibang bansa, diba? And ano pa ba maidadagdag ko? Yung failures will not define you. It should make you stronger. Kasi hindi ka tulad na pagka sa exam sa school, like bumagsak ka lang sa isang sem, pwede kang retake. Pwede din naman yon. But dapat hindi mo siya kimkimin. Kailangan maging way yon para mas lumakas yung loob mo. Kasi hindi pare-parehas yung ugali ng tao na makikilala mo. And hindi lahat ng lugar is mag-a-adjust para sa'yo. Kailangan ikaw din, marunong ka rin makisama. So, ayun.
Sorry, can I add one more thing?
Mm-mm.
Yung mga sa mga school na yan, alam niyo ba kung ano yung, alam niyo yung mga joke na hindi niyo nagagamit yung calculus tsaka yung physics sa mga trabaho niyo? That's very true. I mean, for one, I think that the education system is very, very ancient, very, very old. Pero what I can tell you is that the education system right now, ang pinaka nagagamit niyo dyan, or ang pinaka matututunan nyo being a student when you graduate and go to the real world is number one, how to deal with people. Yung mga group activities nyo, may mga tamad kayong kagrupo, you will have that in the real world. Kailangan marunong kayong gumawa. Mag-present sa harap ng mga tao. Public speaking. You need to learn how to speak and talk to people. Right? English, let's say, okay, fine. English, kailangan nyo matutunan yan, but not everyone is privileged enough to actually learn English. But let's face it, global world, most of the mga trabaho nyo magiging global na. You will actually talk to a lot of cultures, a lot of nationalities. You need to learn how to speak English. Even, broken English, pero you need to communicate. Next is, ano ba, dealing with pressure. Yung mga deadlines na binibigay sa inyo ng mga teacher nyo sa school, that actually trains you to actually meet deadlines at work. And yung sinasabi ni Cavs kanina na when you fail an exam, you can retake it again. Guess what? Not a lot of jobs have take twos. There are some jobs that if you fail once, you're fired, diba? Or if you fail once, your career is over. Let's say policeman, diba? Ideally, policeman, if you fail in the line of duty, you're either dead or, hindi mahihirapan ka na maghanap ng ibang trabaho. There are jobs like that. So yung pinagdadaanan nyo sa school, while you can't really go through or get the ba yun? You don't really apply a lot of the subjects that you study. Kunyari ako, for example, I've never used calculus in my life. But at the same time, studying for calculus, making an effort to actually pass the exams, that prepared me eventually to study for things that I need to pass for me to work. So yung discipline of actually studying, making time for studying, facing the pressure and the worry of being passing or failing dun sa exam eventually, nagagamit ko yun for work. So you may not be using a lot of the subjects in general, pero yung other things like the people skills, how to handle pressure, magagamit niyan. So it really sucks for me na a lot of the people that I interact with here in this app and on Twitter, sobrang hiyang-hiya kayo makipag-usap sa mga tao. And it hopefully you're still young enough to actually build the skills to talk to people because guys, kailangan nyo matutunan yan kapag nagtrabaho na kayo. Hindi pwedeng shy-shy lang kayo. Most of the work that you need to do, you need to deal with people. You need to be able to talk to people. So hopefully, matutunan nyo yan eventually. Ay, sorry, Cavs, go. Hello? Cavs, naka-mute ka.
Hindi po makapag-unmute. Oh my God, sorry. Ayaw makisama ng kumo. Oh my God.
Sige, punta na
Ano
tayo sa
sir?
questions kasi parang
Opo.
I need to drop ng mga 11:40. Mag-i-impake pa ako.
So, meron po kasi kaming mga questions na natanggap. So, the
Sige.
first question is there a specific age where you can consider an individual entering adulting stage? I mean, sa hirap ng buhay sa Pinas, would you consider someone who is a high school graduate an adult? Kasi 'di ba, may iba na hindi na nakatungtong ng college o kaya ng senior high kasi diretso na silang nagbabanat ng buto.
Oo, I mean, wala namang well, if you're looking at the technical definition of it, an adult is what, 18 o 21? So parang ganun, 'di ba? That's a technical definition. Pero if you're talking about the adulting that we talked about, yung experiences of realizing ang hirap maghanap ng pera, ang hirap kumita ng pera, right? I need to deal with people, ganyan, I need to make hard non-black and white decisions, then it depends when you actually experience that. So alam niyo yung term na pag sinasabi na yung mga abused children na wala, they were robbed of their childhood. It's because, they were exposed to the reality of the real world at an early age. And I won't consider them as adults, but at some point they experienced something that only adults would have experienced. And it's sad that they went through that. So, yeah, I mean, adulting is just basically dealing with the realities of the world, not being sheltered by your parents or home life or whatever. So it doesn't really, I don't think you can put an age to it. Depende lang talaga sa buhay mo and how you're exposed to the environment.
Ayun, thank you so much for that wonderful answer. Charot lang.
Wow.
Question number 2, sir. Meron ka bang moment sa buhay mo na parang napasabi ka na, shucks, this is the real world. Ito na, hindi na ako college student, hindi na ako nag-aaral, as in employee na talaga ako. So, ganun.
Oo, nung tumigil yung mga baon ko sa school. 'Di ba? Parang ako kasi nung naka-graduate ako November eh. Tapos October, tapos nagte-thesis ako ganyan. Pagtapos ko ng thesis, hindi na ako nakakakuha ng baon sa parents ko. I mean, sige, parang binibigyan nila ako. Pero nasa bahay lang kasi ako noon. So parang okay, tumigil na yung allowance. And then pagdating nung ng first paycheck ko, syempre yung first paycheck, nilibre ko sila sa magandang dinner, ganyan, nagbayad. Tapos, I think nag-hit lang sa akin na, wait, ito na yung real world. Nung kinailangan ko nang magbayad ng tax, may mga bills na ako kasi may bills na ako sa phone, sa credit card. Tapos parang nag-share na ako sa mga bills namin sa bahay at that time. So parang doon na nag-hit sa akin, uy, wait, totoo na to. Tapos I think pinaka nag-sink in siya yung first time na na-zero ako, as in yung walang natira sa sahod, gano'n. So, swerte ko lang na parang working yung parents ko pareho. So, meron akong safety net na parang, uy, pautang muna, bayaran ko sa sweldo. Pero not a lot of people merong ganong chance. Pero doon siya nag-hit sa akin, yung pera aspect talaga, doon mo marirealize. I mean, doon ko na, for me, doon ko siya na-realize. Kasi yung other aspects naman of being an adult, they came in later. Kasi parang when you start work, you're still in touch with a lot of your college friends, high school friends, ganyan. So parang meron pang part of you being a student that is still part of your life. Eventually naman parang mag-iiba lang yung set of friends mo as you grow your network outside of your schools eh. So dun lang mapupunta yung non-work aspect. Pero nag-hit talaga siya sa akin nung first time kong magbayad ng bills, taxes, um, first time kong ma-zero, tapos wala talaga akong pera at kailangan kong umutang. Hindi na naman siya makapag-unmute. Dandan. Ayan.
Ayan. Tapos meron din akong ganyan, like, yung first time ko na masabi sa sarili ko na nasa real world na ako, meron ako na sa first job ko na hindi na-count yung OT pay. Like, kahit sabihin mong less than 100 siya, in-OT mo siya eh. Alam mo
Nakakaiyak
yun,
yun, no?
totoo yun na every peso count. Kapag nagtatrabaho ka na, siguro before, kung halimbawa estudyante ka, hindi nabigay sa'yo yung sukli mo na like 5 pesos, okay lang sa'yo, like bigay mo na lang sa kanya. But then, alam mo yun, bawat oras mo bayad. And karapatan mo yun makuha. Kasi sahod mo siya. So, yun yung isa sa, naalala ko lang talaga yun na yung OTP ko, pag check ko ng payslip, walang bayad yung isang araw. Kahit na sabihin mo 50 or 60 pesos lang yun, it's still 60 pesos. Pamasahe pa rin siya, pambili pa rin siya ng pagkain. So, yun. Na-share ko lang. So,
Totoo naman yun. Lalo na kung mahirap kasi yun nga eh, oras mo, pagod mo yun.
Mm-mm.
And, di ba, Ang hirap, lalo na di parang pa-flashback sa akin yung mga may ganyan kasi nangyari sa amin din before na parang hindi nabayaran. So, parang ang
Mm.
bigat-bigat sa kasi na-budget mo na yung alam mo na kung ano yung sweldo
Opo,
mo,
opo.
tapos hindi nabayaran pagkatapos. So,
Mm.
magre-budget ka na naman, may mga utang ka din babayaran. Ganun.
Oo, minsan
Sad.
ano, nung nag-work din ako before sa agency, ano siya, may mga workers talaga na kahit 10 pesos lang yun, hahabulin nila yung 10 pesos na yun. Sobrang, guys, totoo yun. Kahit 10 pesos lang yun, mahalaga sa kanila. Siguro kung kayo, okay lang yun. Pag nag-work na kayo, hindi. So,
Kaya yung kung may mga
friends.
students pa diyan tapos alam niyo yun, nakikita niyo yung efforts ng mga parents niyo or mga
Hmm,
guardians niyo na magbigay ng pera sa inyo. Appreciate niyo yan dahil oh my God, ang
yes.
hirap
Like,
kumita ng pera.
i-value nyo. So, sir, moving on to number 3, would you suggest someone who is a fresh grad na mag-take muna ng rest or kailangan magtrabaho agad? Kasi, di ba, it's a new world that they're going to enter. So, from your perspective, ano yung may sasuggest mo?
Depende sa priorities mo sa buhay. I mean,
Mm-mm.
hindi naman lahat magkakaroon ng um what's the term? Not everyone has the luxury to take a break after. Yung kunyari,
Mm-mm.
travel muna ako, bakasyon muna. Hindi naman eh. Kasi, kunyari, di ba kung ikaw yung nag-iisang breadwinner in a big family, ikaw yung nakatapos ng college, syempre yung pressure sa'yo is to provide kasi may papaaralin ka pang mga kapatid, ganyan, di ba?
Yes.
So, depende sa level of privilege mo at sa priorities mo sa buhay. If meron kang pera, kaya mong magbakasyon muna bago magtrabaho at hindi mo naman priority kumita agad ng pera, then I would say go for it. Ako, for example, if I had to do it over again, I would have taken like 3, 6 months na
6
bakasyon.
months lang.
Kasi ang bilis ko eh. Pero hindi rin naman ako nagsisisi kasi at least, di
Kasi,
ba?
sir, walang bakasyon sa Mapua, di ba?
Pero
Halos
okay lang.
wala.
I mean, to me, di naman siya that big of a deal. Siguro naman nung simula, na parang nung nagtatrabaho ako, tapos nakikita ko yung mga iba kong kabatch, nagbakasyon muna
Nagbabakasyon.
bago magtrabaho.
Mm-mm.
So, may konting inggit, pero at the same time, it wasn't really that big of a deal. So, depende na lang din, di ba? Kaya yun nga, hindi naman kasi lahat may privilege na gawin yun. Like yung sinabi mo, di ba, parang high school graduate pa lang, nagtrabaho na.
Mm-mm.
May mga ganun talagang tao. So, depende na lang talaga sa privilege at sa priorities nyo.
Oh, so kung privileged enough ka, mas magandang magbakasyon ka muna. I mean, take a rest.
Uh,
Kasi ilang taon ka nag-aral.
doesn't really have to be vacation. Just
Mm.
spend time. Kasi yun nga,
Para
pag
pagpahingahin mo lang
nagsimula
yung
na kayo,
sarili.
mahirap na, oo. I-enjoy
And
niyo
then,
muna yung moment na, nakatapos na ako ng college, hindi na ako mag-aaral. Tapos,
mm,
ihanda niyo na yung sarili niyo na for the next 5 years, to 5 to 10 years of my life, slave na ako ng kumpanya. Parang ganun.
So, hindi naman pag sinabing magbakasyon ka is gumastos ka. Like, make time for your family, for your friends,
Oo, kung ano lang
yung
kung ano yung
sarili mo.
pang-unwind niyo, ganyan. Oo.
'Di ba? Kung ano yung mga gusto mong gawin, parang i-priority mo naman yung sarili mo, like magpahinga ka. Gusto mo magbawi ng tulog, matulog ka. Gusto mo manood ng K-drama, manood ka. 'Di ba? Parang reward yourself kasi ilang taon ka nag-aaral. But then, so yun nga, may ibang mga tao na kailangan agad magtrabaho. So, sana yung mga ganong klaseng tao, kahit papaano mabigyan nila ng magkaroon sila ng work-life balance. Kahit papaano ha, kasi importante pa rin yung work-life balance para sa mental health ng tao. So yun, parang minsan sobra-sobra ng kumayod, but then hindi nila nakikita yung sarili nila na kailangan na magpahinga pala. So
I mean,
yun,
yung
opo.
generation naman ngayon, and I think the culture right now
Mm.
is going towards that. Wala na yung hustle culture ngayon eh. Wala na siya masyado.
Yes
Alam
sir,
mo yun?
yes sir.
Ano
Mm.
na ngayon eh, parang it's a big thing sa mga tao na yung, hello, may kanta nga Ben and Ben tungkol sa pagpapahinga eh. Di ba?
Mm.
Hindi na yung, I mean, yung mga songs, let's say 10 years ago, all about the hustle, all about, getting money, getting paid, whatever.
Mm.
Di ba? So yung culture naman kasi ngayon is gearing towards that. Self-care, disconnecting, ganyan. So there's a good environment. There's a better environment. I wouldn't say it's good, but we're in a better environment now than we are 10 years ago. Um, Mentally speaking, sa workplace cultures, right? Pero again, meron pa ring mga hindi ganun. Like for example, let's say mga contractual workers, ganyan. hindi gano'n kaganda yung cultures. Pero yun nga, I mean, it's your life, right? So, um, if you work in a decent enough company, you can set personal boundaries eh. If ang trabaho mo is 8 to 5 lang, you can choose to work 8 to 5, right? Make time for your family. No one's forcing you to go into overtime. And if someone's asking you to go overtime, right? You can technically, dapat pwede ka mag-say no. But if you say yes, you get paid for it and compensated for it.
Yes, actually dapat magkaroon ka talaga ng work-life balance kasi may chance na maaga kang ma-burnout sa work kasi
Yeah.
sobrang pagod. So, kailangan mong i-value yung work-life balance mo. And actually, maganda yung mga research na lumalabas recently sa IOPsych, Industrial Organizational Psychology, na um, may progress sa bawat generation. Like before, kailangan yung 8 to 5 kung mag-render na OT, mag-render na OT. And then yung sunod na generation, nagkaroon sila ng work-life balance. And then yung sumunod na generation, vinavalue naman nila yung self-care and such. So maganda na ganun yung nagiging progress sa bawat generation na dumadaan. 'Di ba?
Mhm.
So, ayun. Next question. Ano ba 'to? What's your advice sa mga fresh grad na hindi nag-land sa job na naka-align sana sa course na tinik nila nung college, sir?
Struggle. You're so
Hi,
late. Joke
Gil!
lang. Wait, ano yung question? Fresh grads na
Um,
hindi nag-ano?
nag-land sa naka-align na course. Like, for example, nursing and then napunta sa ibang field.
Ah,
Ganon.
complex question. Well, you have to consider why did they do that. Like for example, meron akong mga friends, mga kakilala
Mhm.
na um kasi galing ako sa churchy family, churchy. Basta yung lumaki
Ah,
sa church, ganyan. So meron akong mga kakilala na let's say nag-aral sa seminary to be pastors, to be ministers, ganyan. And then, through no fault of their own, dahil lang sa circumstance, they had to go to um tawag dito, uh, work in call centers, ganyan, or work in jobs na hindi naman related talaga sa field nila. Kasi sa hirap ng buhay yun eh. So I think first thing that you need to consider, if you're a fresh grad and then you went to a job that isn't aligned, why did you do that in the first place? I would say na yung main reason would probably be money, right? So kailangan nyo kumita kagad ng pera, walang opportunity sa current field nyo. So you have to make do with what's available. And nothing's really wrong with that. Diba? I have, I have had employees, I have had team members in my team na parang, like for example, there was one time na parang I actually hired a non-IT person. Dati siyang parang production assistant sa kabilang network, kabilang network, sa GMA. Production assistant siya, pero I hired her kasi she was really good with computer stuff. Um, so it wasn't her course, she was in advertising. Pero her goal was to make enough money, and you get a lot of money in IT kasi compared to advertising marketing, depending on the company. But her goal was to actually just make enough money for her to study masters sa degree. I mean, get a master's degree sa field niya. So, for example, if you're that type of fresh grad, just understand why you're landing a job which is not your field. Understand bakit kayo nandun, 'di ba? And then eventually, kung ayaw nyo talaga yung work, get an exit plan. So, kung pera lang ba kailangan nyo, edi mag-set kayo ng target na ipon and then have a timeline for it. And then work hard to actually meet that timeline para hindi kayo ma-stuck dun sa field na ayaw nyo. Pero sometimes, that doesn't happen and you get stuck in the field, then suck it up, be an adult about it. It's what puts money on your bank accounts, puts food on the table. So just be practical about it. Meron talagang ganyan. Like I've hired a lot of engineering graduates, like industrial engineering, civil engineer, that's now they're doing IT work. And it's because at that time parang hindi maganda yung starting salary ng engineers versus in IT, and they needed money. So it's okay. I mean, it depends on the priority and depends on why you got in that kind of job in the first place. Nothing's wrong with that. Depende na lang talaga yan sa mga goals niyo sa buhay. Hindi na naman siya makapag-unmute o tan tan tan.
So, yun po.
Ilan pa yung tanong?
Ano po, last question po.
Anong
Ay, tupa
last
po,
na?
tupa. Tupa,
Okay,
tupa. May dalawa
go.
po po. As an adult po, how do you not let your daily struggles defeat you?
Ano? Daily struggles defeat me.
Apo.
So, parang kumbaga paano ako nag-go through. Ako kasi motivation ko talaga yung mga bayarin ko. So, depende. And I think that's going to be very similar to a lot of adults here. Like, for example, if you ask the OFWs, bakit may mga OFWs na kahit abusive yung behavior ng mga boss nila, hindi sila umaalis. They need the money. And it's the same thing for me. I need the money. I have bills to pay. May babayaran akong bahay, bills, ganyan. So, wala eh. That's being an adult. Ganun talaga. Hindi pwedeng, well, pwede sige, you take a day off or two, you recover. Pero may trade-offs yun, di ba? Lalo na if yung trabaho mo is yung type na output-based ka, na kailangan may nami-meet kang target every week, ganyan. You have to understand na you taking a day off will mean that you lose the opportunity to meet a target or, make a quota, ganyan. So may trade-offs, then you need to balance that. Pero ganun talaga eh. I mean, ako personally, my motivation is I have a lot of bills to pay. I have a lot of bills to pay for the next, 10, 15 years. So, di pwedeng tamad-tamarin na lang. Kailangan timing yung tamad. So sabi ni Kim Agnes, yes, kahit ano sabihin nila, kailangan papalabas na lang sa tenga. Oh, that's the reality of it. Marami talagang,
Huwag mo na
ganun
lang
talaga eh.
absorb.
Okay, last question.
Last question, sige sir. So as a young adult, what life advice would you give to us na you wish you'd learned earlier in your life?
Yata ako yung adult. Wait. One advice. I would, um, hmm, I'd say, hirap pa. Pero sige. Sige, para lang on brand dun sa mga pinagsabi ko kaninang reality. I think be patient would be a good advice, right? Don't lose hope, don't lose track of why you started working in the first place. So if it doesn't feel like you're making progress, um, just be patient because the best things in life, they really take time to um, to achieve. So job satisfaction, a fulfillment sa mga ginagawa nyo. You probably won't get that in the next 2 to 5 years of working. Yung best um, analogy ko dyan is um, if you're working out, so kung mga nagji-gym dyan, mga nagpapapayat, alam niyo yung feeling na first time yung mag-workout, makbo kayo sa treadmill, nagbuhat kayo, ganyan. Tapos, haharap kayo sa salamin. Anong makikita nyo? So, let's say, nag-workout kayo for 4 hours. Tumakbo kayo 2 hours. Nagbuhat-buhat kayo ng weights. Nag-zumba kayo for 2 hours. Tumingin ka sa salamin. Anong makikita mo? Kabs, ikaw. Anong makikita mo pag ganun? Or sa mga tao sa comments?
Sige sir.
Ano? So,
Ano?
nag-workout ka for 4 hours. Anong makikita mo sa salamin after?
Wala pang changes.
Wala pang
Hindi
changes,
kasi
di ba?
hindi kasi instant yung progress.
And then,
Diba? Hindi mo
do
siya
it.
makukuha agad-agad.
Let's say you do it again for the next 2 to 3 days. Mag-workout ka pa rin. Anong chances
Wala.
na may progress ka? Wala pa rin, di ba?
Wala.
So, ganun lang din siya. I mean, same thing with relationships, right? Hindi,
Mm.
kapag nanliligaw ka or kapag you're making a person fall in love with you, it doesn't take one big gesture or one big effort for them to fall in love.
Yes.
Hindi ganun yun. It's all about the little things. So yung magpapaganda ng katawan mo is the consistency, going to the gym. So you don't get buffed or you don't get thin from a 4-hour exercise. It's the 20-minute exercise that you do, let's say, every other day for the next 3 to 4 months, that actually makes progress and gets you the results that you need. And it's the same thing with relationships, right? It's not one big gesture that does it. It's the little things. Na good morning ka, na good night ka, tinanong mo kung kumain na ba siya, and you do it consistently over and over and over again until magising siya one day and say, uy, I care about this person. I like this person too. And same thing with your jobs. It's not one big achievement, and it's not one big, thing that will make you fulfilled sa mga trabaho nyo. It's going to be those little things. So, kunyari, parang yung na-realize nyo na eventually you're starting to love your job because of the people there, or you're being given increases, na alagaan kayo ng kumpanya, right? So, you may not be in the right field, the right trabaho, ganyan. Pero if you're working with great people in a great company, then probably it's a good thing. And you learn to love the things that you do. Pero yun,
Sabi
be
nga nila,
patient
sir,
lang.
'di ba, parang enjoy your job kasi if you enjoy your job, it doesn't feel like you're working, 'di ba? So,
Yep.
yearns. So, meron
Yun.
pa ba kayong tanong? Hindi, I would like, gusto ko lang din syempre mag-thank you sa'yo, sir, for sharing your insights, your tips, your advices, kasi alam ko namang meron at merong natutunan yung mga yan kahit students lang yung iba, like yung iba, pag-graduate pa lang, kaulapel. Kaya pa ba?
Kaya pa.
Mhm.
Thank you po. Thank you po.
Yan. Sana, sir, one day, mas dumami pa yung mapag-sharean mo. Like, hindi lang dito sa Kumu, and sana ma-meet ka namin in person na ikaw yung speaker. Kasi sobrang daming
So
input.
sweet.
At dahil dyan magbabagsak ang virtual gift. Charot.
Wow.
Joke
Sige,
lang.
magko-convert muna ako. Joke lang.
Joke lang, joke lang. Joke lang. Wait,
Joke lang
natawa ako
ba?
kasi masyado tayong seryoso. Di, syempre
O hindi
tawa-tawa
ah.
din. So
Inita
yun,
ko to eh.
sir,
Hindi, joke lang.
sobrang, parang kasi, parang, alam mo yun, parang bitin yung, 1 hour 30 minutes? 'Di ba? Parang, ang dami pa kasing pwedeng i-topic. And sana makapag-guest ka ulit dito, sir, sa Banana FM na ibang
Sure.
topic naman. Oh my God.
Sure.
Like, sir, mental health. Taray collab.
Pero
Taray.
sige, I'll probably do another stream later on. Kasi nagpa-survey ako last week eh. So baka
Yes, yes,
I'll
sir.
do
Nakita ko yun.
something, I don't know, probably next week. The
Mhm.
topic will be digital burnout. I mean, preventing digital
Mm.
burnout.
I
So,
bet.
kung nababurnout na kayo sa mga ginagawa nyo day in,
Thank you,
day out
Ate
sa mga
Sel.
devices nyo,
Thank you, Ate
mga tips na
Sel.
ganun.
Kasi umiikot na lang tayo ngayon sa digital bro.
Hello,
Yeah.
thank you, Ate
Thank you
Sel.
po. Ay, ang dami. Thank you.
Hala, thank you so much po.
Thank you, Ate Sel. Thank you, thank you.
Ayan.
Okay.
So,
Meron
yun,
pa ba
sir.
tayong last questions? Baka may
Mhm.
questions pa yung
Baka
mga
may gusto kayong
sa
itanong kay Sir
audience.
Carl before
Okay
we
lang. Di naman
finally
nagmamadali.
end this.
Basta midnight
Basta
siguro.
magtanong.
Kung
Meron
wala
pa
na,
bang
okay lang din.
Sa balita ko, kakanta daw po kayo.
Oh,
Oh,
wow!
hindi na lang ni Sir yan kung kakanta siya. Sabi ko, sir? Kalimutan ko na.
Ay,
Hindi
wow.
mambudol. Pag napaabot ng ng
Hala. Ayan na po.
mambudol tayo, sige. Pero sige, okay lang naman. Gusto nyo ba? Isa lang,
Mabudol mo tayo, sir. Ganun.
Siyempre, sir, tatanungin pa ba yan?
Siyempre, sir,
Ano
sampo.
ba yan?
So, mag-isip na kayo ng
Alam mo yung
Pero teka
feeling
lang.
na sabi ni sir, di ba, paabutin natin ng ganitong dayas. Tapos, siya din yung magbabagsak para umabot.
Oh my God, double budol
Budol
yan. Double
Teka lang,
budol yan.
bigyan nyo ako 5 minutes. Magsiset up muna ako.
Aray,
Ayun.
sige sir, sige sir.
Wow.
Kwentuhan muna kayo dyan.
Go!
Okay.
So, ano na, hi, Ate Jenny!
Ibang klase sila, Pel, no?
Oo.
Bunso, pero adulting ang topic.
Taray mo, alam mo yun,
Isang
naipasok
karangalan
niyo
na
yung
mabati mo.
banyo queen, naipasok sa adulting. My God, lapel, char. Joke
Naman
lang.
na ako.
Oo,
Nakakakaba
Caps,
kaya.
tulog na. Kakatulog lang.
Oo. Wala namang charot. Ayoko ipasok yun ng bus. Ang ano ko.
How to
kalat
become a
na-
baby na. Char.
Bibi. Gusto ba na to, Bibi talaga?
Papaturo tayo sa anak ni Ate Jenny kung paano.
Yeah. Paano mga gat? Charot.
Hoy, lapel!
Ay, nako. Dot na lang
Lapel.
kayo dyan para tumaas pa tayo
Alam
sa
niyo yung
ranking.
yung mga gat nung teeter. Yun kasi yung papaturo ko. Ano ba? Ay, naisip
ba?
niyo na
Ano
naman
ba?
dyan. Teeter ng bata. Di ba mahilig mga gat yung mga bata. Happy.
Hello po sa mga bagong pasok. Drop na po kayo ng NFC Sampaguita, NFC Barrelman, NFC Jeepney at NFC Blue Check para po magka-blue check na po kami. Thank you po.
Ikaw, Ate Jenny, ano yung mga natutunan mo tonight?
Hala.
Parenting with Jenny
Ayan,
Q.
interview
Ayoko
to.
nga. Ayoko ng parenting. Sino ba parents dito? Ako
Ikaw,
lang.
ikaw lang.
Okay po, mag-mute na ako. Charot.
Sino pa yung mga nasa baba? Press 1. Tara, may 52.
Ano daw kanta?
Kanta para
Tungkol
kay
sa
ate.
adulting. Kasama kang tumanda. Ang
Ate
jolog.
Jenny, tawa yan? Hala, Aldrin, thank you so much.
Lolo, thank you,
Wow.
Lolo.
Kudos to
Wow,
Madam.
dahil dyan, magbabagsak ka.
Ang galing niyo mag-host.
Yes,
Oo,
babagsakan
true.
nyo kami dahil
Dahil
natutuwa
ganyan,
naman ako,
magbabagsak kayo.
Tama kang tumanda.
Sa Ate Jenny din kakanta mamaya daw.
Yun lang alam ko.
Yun, di ba, Ate Jenny?
Kesa naman kasama kang bumata. Charot.
Adulting eh.
Wala na. Lupet. Iba talaga. Wag ano na kayo ng kanta. Fine question.
Sir Karlito, kung ano po yung tawag dito, kung saan ka komportable, kumanta, kung ano yung gusto mong kantahin.
Comfortable
Para hindi ka
kayo.
ma-pressure, kasi baka pag galing sa amin yung kanta, ma-pressure ka. So, dapat,
Thank you, Miss Tets.
Tets. Hi, Miss Tets.
alam ko na, para may nakita ko,
Thank you,
your
ate.
universe, yung your universe ba yon? Para may nakita akong ganong tweet kanina. Ay, wala naman yung nag-request dito. Aldrin, baka naman,
Thank you po.
tawagin mo.
Ano naman yan?
Gitara.
Ayun, gitara.
Ayan, sige.
Yearn.
Go. Char.
Pa.
Hello kay Kim Agnes at saka kay Lovingly Yours.
Hi,
Good
Ate
evening.
Kim. Hi po, lovingly yours. Hello. Welcome to Banana FM. Gusto ko mag-hyper. Mamaya ako mag-hyper. Charot. May oras. Sakto, magta-12 na. Hyper na naman sila, Pel. Sama kang tumanda.
Oo, si Lola Maruya, speaker natin. Buhay sa Japan. Char.
Patatawanin kita. Irayo na.
Sino? Nakakainis.
Si Saba, ang daming no, napaka
Bakit?
talaga kahit kailan.
Namura na ata siya ni admin. Puro asterisk.
Wala ka dyan, Saba. Nabwisit ka. Alam mo na yung higa pag yung talaga mapapasabi ka talaga na Hindi naman sa
Isa-isa ni Atom yung
Ay,
letter. Stages of life.
Feeling ko si Sabalola na. Charot!
Ayun nga, buhay OFW. Para kay Lola Maruya.
Narinig niyo ako?
Hello po!
Hi, sir. Welcome
Lakas po.
back. Naririnig naman po.
O ano na? Ay, may echo. Ano na?
May gitara, sir.
Okay, game, sir. Go, Sir
Go, Sir
Carl.
Sige,
Carl.
tapping ko pa yung... Hindi po ako magaling kumanta. Ay, ba't tayo? Naririnig ba kayo na music? Na ads?
Wala.
Na!
Ay, meron, sir.
Super lakas. Wait.
Hindi naman.
Yan.
Ayan.
Teka lang Saan lakas sa akin? Paano ba ito? Nakakatanga tong V8. Okay lang ba siya compared sa boses ko o mahina?
Ayan, okay lang po.
Talaga?
Mm-mm.
Hindi yung masyadong malakas yung boses
Oo,
ko.
yan. Sabi lang.
Well. Drop naman kayo dyan. Pakakantayin nyo.
Drop na po kayo.
Hoy, lahat naman ang idadrop nyo sa akin,
Magda-drop
napupunta yan dun sa sa iniipon kong 100K na Dias para
Ay,
donate dun
wow.
sa Potion Project. Meron na akong 80.
Yun. Thank
So,
you
plus
po.
itong 11. Meron na akong
Miss
91. Pag naka 100K na ako,
Ay, malapit na.
Yes, malapit na.
Thank you, Miss
abot ko ba?
Tets.
Wala pong abot ko ito eh.
Thank you po, Miss Kim. Thank you po.
Salamat po sa gift. Ina-drop ko naman kung nag-request eh. Sayang naman yung pa-request mo. Ina. Lagi sumagot.
Ay,
Nag-drop,
wow.
okay.
Thank you, Miss Tets.
Advance.
Thank you, Ate Sel.
Teka lang i-check ko lang kung paano ko.
Sige po.
Thank you, Ate Sel. Thank you, Miss Tets. Thank you po. Ano na ba? Antay
Yes
natin.
po, thank you po.
Let's all welcome ang titots ng QC. Charot!
Mang ilan na ba tayo sa ranking?
Sino nagpauso ng titot?
Ay, sino daw? Saging, sagot. Sir, ano yun eh? Ang sabi doon, ano yun? Ang
Ano ba
full
kayo?
of
NFC
thoughts.
Squad.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Yun, ang full of thoughts tito ng QC, Titots Carlito. Kasi full of
Oo,
thoughts.
yun.
Sir,
Kasalanan
witty
niyo.
yours.
Ba't wala kayo sa ranking ng squad? Saan ba yun?
Oo nga, nasan pa tayo?
Saan ba kayong Saan napunta na ranking? Wala kayo dun sa squad chief.
Parang di pa nagre-reply yung Kumu.
Ngayon lang ba kayo nag-start ng campaign?
Ngayon lang.
Sige. Bakit pa kailangang magbihim? Sayang din naman ang forma. Lagi lang namang may sisingit at tuwing tayo'y magkasama. Pa kailangan ng rosas kung marami namang nag-aalay sa'yo. Upo lang at aawi, maghihintay ng pagkakataon. Hahayaan na lang silang magkandara pa naman ligaw sa'yo. Idadaan na lang kita sa awitin kong ito. Sabay ang tugtog ng gitara. Idadaan na lang sa gitara. Ganyan pa ako isa, hindi ko abot ko eh. Mapapagod lang sa kakatingin kung marami namang nakaharang. Aawit na lang at magpaparinig ng lahat ng aking nadarama. Magbibigyan na lang silang kandara pa naman ligaw sa'yo. Idadaan na kita sa awitin kong ito. Sabay ang tugtog ng gitara. Idadaan na lang sa gitara. Yan yung RG song. Kasi Ralph Gale official nga pala. May bigyan yung RG song. Para matino.
True po. True.
Bibigyan silang magkandara pa naman ligaw sa'yo. Idaraan na lang kita sa awitin kong ito. True. Sige, true na lang. Tapusin ko na kasi true o BGC? Pwede either. 1 true, 2 BGC. Dali. Last na. True. O, puro. Okay. Buti lang wala siya. Pagpangit. Narinig ba? Walang music? Yan, hindi nyo naririnig yan. Hindi nyo naririnig yung beat na yan. Yung sa iba.